Whisperer. An interesting thought crossed my mind during the week, and I thought it would make a really great episode for the Wealth Whisperer, only because I believe that quite a few people experience challenges in their life and certain situations in their life that can lead to really a make or break situation. And one of those times in my life, one of those experiences that I had, was that I had to go on to free school meals at one point. And it was when I was around about, I have to guess now, around about 12 or 13 years old. So pretty formative time in my life. Having just started secondary school in the UK, which is where you go to school from the age of 11 to 16. And where children can be quite nasty to each other if they're a little bit out of the ordinary. And I wasn't one of the trendiest kids. I certainly wasn't in the in crowd, as it were. So my clothes weren't that great. We didn't have that much money anyway. And so I wasn't able to kind of have what a lot of the other children had. So this experience of also having to go on to free school meals led to quite a challenging time at school. Now, the reason I went onto free school meals was because my dad had gone into business. I won't go into all the details here, but he'd gone into business, into the adhesives manufacturing industry. And unfortunately, that business didn't work out due to economic situation at the time. And that was on a more national scale, that he wasn't able to make that business viable at the time. And so unfortunately the business had to fold and he had to retrain. So he retrained to become a chemistry teacher. And so during that time we had really very little money coming in. And so my parents sat me down and said, Hazel, you're going to have to go on to free school meals. And so this was quite a challenging moment for me. It made me feel like, oh my goodness me, we really don't have a lot of money. I knew that my parents had challenges in the past with money, in terms of having enough. So that made me feel like even more that there was a sense of lack. I was also quite embarrassed, I'm going to have to say, because you used to have to go to the school office and you used to have to queue up to get your little free school meal pass to go and stand in the queue at the dinner hall. And of course, when you handed your free school meal pass in at the till, of course everybody knew that you were on free school meals. And of course that's a recipe for lots of fun and games, teasing, whispering, just general kind of kids not making each other feel very great kind of situations. Now I was certainly never ashamed of my parents and the situation that they were going through, because I knew they were doing everything they could to, and they always did provide, and we had always had enough. And it was just a phase they were going through where this challenge had taken place, and that's, they had to do it. So I certainly didn't feel bad from that point of view. But of course, the impact that it had on me at school as a young teenager was quite profound at that time. And I remember thinking, I'm gonna do something with my life. I'm gonna do well. I worked hard. I made sure that I did the work. I mean, I kind of always had that trait of being determined, but this kind of made me feel even more determined to do well and to do something with my life. And the experience that I had around money when I was a child, experiencing the fact that, like I say, my parents didn't have a lot compared to other people that I knew who I went to school with, and that feeling or that sense of lack when I was younger really forged my later life. Because when I went to music college and then graduated from music college, I set out to get work, as we all do when we've graduated from university or whatever form of education we've been in, and I went out there with this intention of making something of my life. And also, I think subconsciously, I never wanted to feel like that again. I never wanted to feel like I didn't have enough or that I was lacking enough money to be able to live. And so I think subconsciously I set out on this path, if you like, to make money, to become rich, to have enough so that I could feel differently compared to when I was younger. And like I say, this was more subconscious in the beginning until I started working and I became more conscious about exploring different ways to do just that. Now, for those of you who know me, you'll know that my early years as a music teacher and musician, I spent quite a lot of time in little broom cupboards teaching children how to play different instruments, mainly woodwind instruments. And often those broom cupboards were quite cramped, a little bit smelly, dusty or damp or what have you. And quite often they were internal rooms, so they didn't have any natural daylight. And so, on the occasions that I did get natural daylight and it wasn't too cramped, it was quite nice, but it wasn't particularly pleasant. And I remember sitting in the lessons where a pupil didn't turn up, for example, or in between lessons, or when I had a break, for example, kind of conjuring up all the different ways that I could actually, do something different. And I knew that that wasn't going to be my life forever. And so the subject I wanted to bring up today was how your childhood has shaped your experience of working with money, having money, not having money, creating wealth, what your thoughts are around money as a result of the childhood experiences that you had, and how your family's financial situation made you feel way back when, and how it's determined your own experience of life. So I know other people, I've heard of other people, and I know other people who had very little as they were growing up. I mean, their parents scrimped and saved, or they had a one-parent family and that one parent would work their butt off to provide and sometimes do 2 or 3 jobs to be able to put food on the table and a roof over their heads. And the result of that not having much and quite frankly, seeing that person struggle or those people struggle, how it made them become resilient and determined to turn their own life around and potentially even help their own family as they got older. And so a lot of entrepreneurial spirit, I believe, is born out of adversity in your younger years. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it could be the other side of the equation. It may be that you saw your parents, working really hard, building their own business and being very affluent, having loads of money, being able to provide and go on holidays and have all the best things and the nicest clothes and the nicest food and everything. And maybe you were inspired by that and thought, yeah, I've had a great role model. That's what I want to do as well. Or perhaps it made you more complacent to think, well, yeah, money's easy, comes in easily. Yeah, I've got all this stuff coming in. I don't need to worry about it, don't need to think about it. And perhaps it made you think that you could sit back a little bit and just, enjoy this, and perhaps didn't realize how much it took to actually, create that and have that kind of money coming in. I'd be fascinated to hear what your story is, your childhood story. So please feel free to comment on it and let me know what your childhood experience of money was and how that's affected your life or impacted your life now. Because I think it's absolutely crucial. I think it's definitely formative in terms of how the rest of your life pans out. Okay. So you may have been, like I say, one of those people who had it all, or maybe you were one of those people who had nothing, or perhaps you're somewhere in between, like me, having a few different experiences in your younger years, having a good sort of basic footing, but seeing the struggles and seeing the difficulties around money. And it makes me ask the question to you, what's your motivator? Because whilst subconsciously I wanted to ensure that I had a different experience of life, and certainly for my child to have a different experience of life. And that was my initial motivator to become rich, to grow and build wealth for myself and my family. But actually, now that I am the age I am, I come to realize more and more that actually what it was about was creating a richer experience of life. And actually, if I think back, I think actually my life was very rich. And I did have a wealth of experience in my life from my early years. And perhaps that, alongside the desire to create wealth for myself, has kind of merged, if you like, and sort of forged the appreciation of the experience of life and the wealth of life and what it takes to actually build a life such as that, which has now allowed me to enjoy and appreciate and experience the wealth of life in a lot more aspects of my life. Because at the end of the day, it's our everyday experience of life that is the most important thing to focus on. Not necessarily the amount of money in our bank account, although that is important, of course, especially these days when everything is, priced through the roof. It's important to have enough money in your bank account and enough money coming in to be able to pay for things. But actually, I think for me, what it's turned into is to make sure that I fill myself up with things that make me feel good each and every day, to make sure I appreciate what I have, because in that appreciation and in that awareness of the richness of life and being able to share that with other people and, teach other people and be able to allow them to find their own path in terms of what it takes and how to create that richer life, that makes my life experience all the richer. So I hope that's given you a little bit of food for thought today. I'd love to, like I say, I'd love to know what your own experience of younger days was like and how that's impacted you now. So please feel free to comment and let me know just that. And of course, if there's anything else that you'd like to discuss on this topic or any others that we've discussed in the episodes gone past, of course, please feel free to just let me know. Pop me a line. Great to see you as always. Until the next time.